Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the final session of the Thrive at Work series that we've been doing over the entirety of February. And it's now the last Tuesday in February, which means it's the last week of this series. Today, we are exploring the mental health at work aspect and how to improve your own well-being in the workplace. Now, when I was doing some research for this workshop, I was kind of surprised, but then also not surprised at some of the stats that I found um, around the state of mental health and the effect that it has on the workplace and vice versa. So here are some statistics that I wanted to share before we got started. Actually, 1 in 4 people experience mental health problems each year, but 2 in 5 employees experience work-related mental health issues. And a staggering 50% of millennials have left jobs for mental health reasons. Now, something that those numbers kind of tell me and I identify quite quickly is that mental health needs a lot of support, and workplace well-being isn't a luxury, it's crucial and it's a necessity. So what I want to do in the session today is go through a few practical tips. That's been the focus for the last few sessions, but to go through a few practical strategies to make sure that you are not just surviving at work, but thriving. And these are things that you can do. You don't have to rely on your organization, or your team or your manager. Like it's nice. It's imperative to have the support from the people that you work around. But if that isn't there for whatever reason, rather than waiting for that to happen, there are things that you can also do yourself to make sure that you are protecting your own well-being within the workplace. So I think what I like to think about when we think about well-being is that um, it's like maintaining a garden, right? And I don't know whether you've seen the memes and things of like, being an adult has just been like a grown-up house plant. We need to make sure that we're fed, that we're watered, that we are looked after. We need daily attention. It needs to be the right environment, and we need regular care to be able to thrive. It's exactly the same with workplace well-being. There's a lot of well-being challenges that have come up when I've worked with corporate businesses and on one-to-one clients, and challenges that come up time and time again are around the following things. So, digital overwhelm, meeting fatigue, having meetings back to back to back and not having any time to process the actual information or even take action on the information. That kind of concept of the always on culture. And I think as we've kind of gone through the pandemic and we went through working fully remote, we've kind of gone back to a hybrid, but there still is that blur between your workspace and your home space. So that work-life blur is still there. And then also massive energy depletion as well. So we're going to go into a couple of methods for you to be able to take note of and start taking some actions on that today. It's really small tweaks that you can make, but should hopefully make a big difference. Um, some of the other stats that I found around employees and workplace support um, were also quite staggering as well, which I want to share. So, the studies found that 89% of workers felt that their mental health impacts their work life, but only 49% of those felt comfortable to talk to their manager about it. 41% experienced stress directly related to the workload, and 37% of people struggled with poor work-life balance. So those well-being challenges that I spoke about before that are quite common, obviously they're showing up in the statistics as well. And if you're one of the 49% who doesn't feel confident and comfortable talking to their manager about their mental health, then I implore you to do some of these methods and start to implement some of these things, and hopefully you should hopefully start to see a little bit of a difference with your mental health and how that goes through within your workplace as well. So the first method I'm going to go through is the reset method. So there is 5 steps, RESET. There we go. I can spell reset. The first one is recognizing your signals. It's so easy to just ignore the fact that you've had a tension headache for the last 3 days, or you have started being forgetful, or your brain is a little bit foggy and you can't concentrate. You might be feeling really irritable or kind of really anxious. But it's important for you to recognize your signals because your body is telling you something with those things that something needs to change. It's like when you see like the light flash up on your car, that there's like some one of the lights flashes up and you have to go and look in the manual to find out what it is, like what's causing it. Well, that's what you need to do with the signals that your body is trying to send you. There's a reason that these things are happening. So please don't just ignore it. The first E is for establishing boundaries. Now, earlier on in this series, we did spend a whole session talking about boundaries, so please make sure you go back and have a look at that. But the boundaries are really important to start setting at work. It can feel really scary to do it, but what I would say is start really small and work your way up. And these boundaries can come in different ways. I guess the one thing that I want to just get people to recognize is that yes, boundaries are can be scary to set, but also they are essential for you to be able to have that space that you need to be able to function better and to be able to work better. So don't forget that saying no is absolutely okay. Um, you don't have to be a people pleaser and try to do everything for everybody at work. The S for reset is scheduling recovery. So this might look like having like mini breaks throughout the day. So going to grab a cuppa or a glass of water from the water cooler, or just going for like a walk around the office, like just getting up and stretching your legs. If you're at home and you're working at home, then it is just about making sure that you are moving within the day. So you are maybe setting an alarm for like 30 minutes to an hour and making sure that you are moving around in the day, making sure you are taking lunch breaks. Lunch breaks, like I cannot stress enough how important lunch breaks are for you to take. You think that by sitting through and working all day that you are going to get more done, but you won't because you will hit that 3 p.m. slump. You will start to like your productivity will slow down and you won't be as alert as you were if you actually took a break. And then the final thing of schedule recovery is thinking about end of day routines. So rather than just like shutting the laptop and thinking, oh my God, thank God that is finished for the day, it's about you actually having a proper end of day routine to make sure you're setting yourself up for success for the next day. It's like past you is looking after future you. So definitely look at that. The second E for reset, we are looking at energizing mindfully. So thinking about doing some breathing exercises, movement breaks, and also just getting outside and being able to connect with nature is really, really great. One thing that I personally use when I'm feeling really anxious is something called square breathing, where you are essentially picturing drawing a square in your mind. So you are breathing in for 4 to draw the square and then breathing out for 4 and like undoing the square that you've drawn and just going through that for a few cycles really, really does help. And then the final letter for reset is the T. So it's tracking your progress. So whether that is in a well-being journal, whether you can kind of then start to identify some of the things that you have done that will help you or things that haven't really worked out so well, having that record somewhere of what your well-being journey looks like and how you are watering yourself as a plant and looking after yourself. It's really important to think about doing that. Thinking about doing an energy audit as well. So where you are spending your time that is draining your energy and where you are spending time that is like, what's the opposite of draining? Filling up your cup, I guess. Filling up your cup. Yeah, let's go with that. Also success celebrations, making sure you are celebrating the small wins, making sure you are keeping that good news win folder that I spoke about last week, just to make sure you've got those things there that you're doing a good job and it's okay. And it's just important for us to remind ourselves of that. There are a couple of exercises and tools that you can use if you are thinking about how long you can work at your desk without absolutely going crazy. Like it's just about thinking and trying out different things that are going to work for you. So you could try the Pomodoro technique, which is really great. So that is 25 minutes of work and 5 minutes of rest. And just getting into that cycle of doing maybe two or three sections of Pomodoro and then having a longer break. That works really well. And then also there's a 90-20 rule. So focused work for 90 minutes and then rest for 20 minutes. But that might not feel as manageable. Whereas I feel like sometimes 25 minutes really, really helps. And then you've got that 5 minute break to just go grab a cuppa, just step away from your desk. You've got that time. One thing that I've started doing, which has really, really helped, which wasn't in the plan to talk about, but it's just come to my mind now, is actually having an uncomfortable hour. Now, this sounds really strange because you're putting yourself into a situation where you are uncomfortable. But what are all the little things that you are putting off at work that are causing you stress? That are just like you keep putting it off to the next day, the next day, next day. It's something that you necessarily don't want to do. It's something that you know you've been putting off. It's something that it's an email that you don't want to send. You're scared of what's going to be said if you go back, so you just keep putting it off. But if you continue to put that off, those things are just going to like layer up, and they're just going to cause more stress. So once a week now, I have an uncomfortable hour, and I have maybe five or six things on the list for me to get through, and I get through as many as I can in that hour. In fact, when I did it last week, I only focused on one thing, and I'd been putting it off for about 4 weeks. And I was like, I can't put it off any longer. I have to do it. So I give myself that dedicated time to do the uncomfortable tasks that I don't want to do. And once you've got those done, you're like, oh my goodness, like it feels like a weight has been lifted. So really trying to get into that process of those practical times where you can really focus on that important work to then be able to take it off your plate and move on to the next thing. Now, the wellbeing first aid kit is something that is nice to have if you have a desk in an office. If you don't have like a desk and you're hot desking, then maybe having like a mobile first aid kit to be able to take around with you. But just a few things that really kind of help you center yourself and help you calm yourself. So it might be that you want some essential oils or you can get pulse point roller balms, which are amazing, which have some really great fragrances and kind of getting those scents associated with you being calm is a really great way for you to then start to implement that into your workday. So it might be that you get like a stress ball or something, or a fidget spinner or something that just helps you just relax a little bit and just to be a little bit more mindful. Maybe also having a photo that makes you smile, or a photo album that you look at that kind of reminds you of really amazing things, that kind of makes your cup fill up and you think about like why you're doing this and why is it that you're coming to work, what you're doing it for, just kind of getting back to that reason why as well. But having those things on hand will really help. If you've got a scent that really soothes you or takes you to a fabulous place in your mind's eye where you can go back and memorize those things, like that's a really nice idea to do. And also having it as like a little pack that you can carry around with you in your bag, then it means that if there's anything like this you're finding difficult, then you can pull out those things that you know will make you feel good in that moment and be able to use those. Now, when we think about creating sustainable practices, it's really, really important to do that because, again, more survey related stuff. 60% of employees feel more stressed than they did at work 5 years ago. We can't talk about workplace well-being and workplace stress without recognizing and acknowledging the fact that 5 years ago, pretty much in the last next couple of weeks, like everything changed for everybody. With the pandemic, we went to working remotely, all businesses for the first time ever. And it has been really hard to navigate over the last 5 years what good looks like for employees and employers around the world. And I think that is still something that is being navigated at the moment, and trying to find that right balance for different organizations and different employees. That means that they can still work to the best of their ability without having to feel like they have to be in the office 5 days a week. Because we've shown that we can do it where we don't not in 5 days a week. And I think this is the conversation we could definitely go into deeper, and I'd love to chat to some people about that. So if you're watching this and you want to have a conversation with me about how what hybrid working, whether it's good, whether it's bad, like I'd love to have that chat, but that's probably for a separate conversation, not for now. Um, but what I want us to think about is when we are looking at when we think about back to the reset method, thinking about recognizing those signals, energizing mindfully, scheduling in that recovery. I want to try and think about having a personal well-being strategy for you that works for you. And I think it is really about making sure that you are taking the time to identify how you can help yourself thrive at work. Because whilst there is a lot of responsibility on the employers to make sure that they are not making you do 5 jobs at once and holding you to unrealistic deadlines, and the expectations are so high that you're working 16-hour days. Like, there's a lot of work for employees to do, but it doesn't mean that you can't take control of some of these things for your own well-being and help you prioritize that, because there are things that you could change and you could do to be able to improve your well-being at work. It doesn't all fall on the employer, I don't think. Like, you are responsible for you. Um, so with that in mind, it's about thinking, how can you incorporate things into your morning routine, into your end of day ritual that looks like you can actually start to pull together a plan of being able to do these small things that is then going to help you thrive at work and improve your well-being. So in your morning routine, you might think about looking at setting an intention for the day. What is your intention? How do you want to go into this day? It's so quick and easy that we will very, very quickly just pick up our phone as soon as we wake up. Like, the alarm goes off when we're like, okay, what's happening? Like, how's this going? What's going on? Like, that is instantaneous. And it's so easy just to go on autopilot to be able to do that. And then once you've done that, you just go through an autopilot the rest of the day. You get home and then you're like, okay, what did I actually do today? How did I look after myself? How did I take time for myself? Did I actually leave the office to go for a lunch break? Like, all these things, it just happens because we get into habitual ways of working. And it's not until things go really, really wrong that we start to question, actually, maybe this isn't working for us. But it's about trying to change it before it gets to that stage so we can actually do something about it. So thinking about that intention that you're going to set in the morning, thinking about what are priorities for you in that day, um, what absolutely needs to get done that you need to focus on more than anything, because 9 times out of 10, you are going to do the small little tasks first and leave that big thing looming towards the end of the day. And if it doesn't get done in that day, you are then either taking it home to do it at home after work, or you are leaving it to the next day, putting yourself under pressure, or you're staying late at work to get it done. But really thinking about, if you've got nothing else done that day, what was the most important thing for you to do? And as well, in that morning routine, it is just checking in with your energy and checking in with yourself. And actually, how am I feeling today? What is going on for me? What am I feeling? Am I feeling content? Am I feeling a little bit frustrated? Am I feeling a little bit anger? Where is that coming from? Like, it's just being really self-aware of what is going on for you. Um, One thing that I do, so I struggle quite a lot with anxiety, have done for quite a few years now. And one really great technique that my psychologist has taught me, which I will share with you, is that sometimes, like, you still have to be able to try and function whilst you're dealing with anxiety, whilst you're dealing with depression. Like, it's not easy, like, but you have to somehow try to become functional to be able to continue with life. So sometimes when I'm having these kind of emotions around anxiety, or I'm feeling depressed, then what I will do is, like, I think about that emotion as having it in a backpack. And I say to myself, okay, so I've got that anxiety in my backpack. It's really heavy at the moment, but I am going to start moving. And I literally, like, emotionally, like, put on the backpack, and then I'm like, okay, it's really heavy, but I am moving with it. And it's kind of recognizing that that's very specific to like anxiety and depression, but you can also use it for like, okay, so I'm feeling really frustrated at the moment, and I don't know why I'm feeling frustrated, but it's really affecting me. So I'm just going to take that with me in my backpack, and we'll just see how it goes throughout the day and what's going on. But also trying to identify like what is it that's making me frustrated. But it's important just to be able to check in with how you are actually feeling. Because if you don't, then you are just going to go on autopilot for the day. And I think that is often a lot of the problem is that you are so ingrained in doing these things day in, day out that you don't even realize. And then because you're not aware of what's going on, you just get swept away with everything else and swept away with everybody else that's running 100 miles an hour. And then you're like, hang on a minute, I don't want to run 100 miles an hour. And I think that was a massive realization for me when I had my breakdown back in 2019. And when I went back to work, like I was very aware that everybody else was running on a treadmill over here and they were sprinting and they were going quick. And I used to love that. But I was like, actually, I don't like I'm walking on this treadmill over here and I'm doing okay. I don't feel the need to be running like everybody else. And that's a really hard transition to get away from like feeling like you have to run like everybody else, but also it's okay not to want to run like everybody else. So just bear that in mind too. Sorry, we went off on a massive tangent there, but welcome to my mind. Um, Going back to that well-being strategy, then just to recap, so you have got that morning routine, you're thinking about intention setting, you're thinking about priority planning, what's your big main goal look like that you need to get done for the day, also doing that energy check-in as well to see where your energy levels are and what you actually have to be able to give to somebody today. I think, sorry, one more thing on this. Sometimes you only have 60% to give in a day. You might have not had a great night's sleep. You might not have, um, you might have done a lot of exercise the day before, so you're already feeling depleted. You might not have had enough nutritious food. You might not have drunk enough water. You might be dehydrated. All these things will impact your well-being. If you've only got 60% to give at work that day, that is 100% because you have got 60% to give and you are going to give that 60%. So that is 100% that you've got to give. And it's also remembering that just because you have all these tools in your toolbox doesn't mean you need to give them to everybody. And I think that is a big danger. Like I'm a recovering people pleaser. And when I was working in corporate, I would spend a lot of time being like, yes, I can help. I can do this and I can do this, and this, and I can do all of it and I can do it right now. You don't have to show them your whole toolbox. You've got an amazing toolbox back here with all these things that you can do. You don't have to do it all right now. You could just show them one thing and be like, hey, what do you think of this? And they're like, that's amazing. You don't have to give them everything. I think that's something to remember as well. When we're getting, after we've done the morning routine, we're getting through, we've done some work in the day, but we're going to take a midday reset. So it's making sure that you are maybe taking some time to go and have lunch, step away from your desk, even if it's for 15 minutes, a couple of times a week to start with. Like, don't start too big and then fall off. Like start small and work your way up. So making sure you're taking a lunch break, try and get outside for some fresh air. I mean, as much fresh air as you can have in London, but you can try. But also making sure that you are maybe doing some deep breathing or doing a breathing exercise like the square breathing that I spoke about, just to be able to have that little bit of a reset before you go into the rest of the day. And then the end of day ritual. So you've had your lunch break, you come back to your desk, you're feeling revitalized and rejuvenated, and you are ready to go. When it gets to the end of the day, it's not just slamming shut the laptop and thinking, thank goodness, see you tomorrow, but actually thinking about what it is that you've actually achieved today, what you've got done, what you haven't got done, what's gone well, what hasn't. How can you adjust things for tomorrow? What do you need to do? Who do you need to speak to? Who can help you? Often we think that we need to do all this stuff on our own, but like actually it's who can help you, not how can you do it. And it's really kind of tapping into that as well. And you're thinking about that kind of that end of day ritual as your daily debrief. So this is what's happened, this is where we are, this is what I'm ready to go in for the next day. So then it means when you come in for the next day, you're then ready to go. Like you can just crack on with everything. It's not you kind of picking things up that you left yesterday because you've left yourself in a really good place. Now, when we talk about workplace culture, there's around 71% of companies that have increased their focus on mental health due to the pandemic. So a lot of organizations are open to wellbeing initiatives, but I think it's thinking about like wellbeing initiatives aren't just pizza and yoga on a Friday afternoon. Now, there's nothing wrong with yoga. I absolutely love it. I went this morning. Um, but that isn't a way to only improve the well-being and workplace culture. Um, but a lot of obstacles that kind of people will come across and reasons that they don't have time for well-being and they don't have time to do it. Like that's really silly. There's no other way to say it. That is really silly because if you don't make time, what's that quote? If you don't make time for your wellness, you'll have to make time for your illness. And if you don't start looking after yourself, think about yourself as that house plant. And I'm looking at a house plant at the moment, and it's looking fairly healthy because I watered it this morning. It's next to sunlight, like it's got all these things and it is blooming. But if I moved that, stopped watering it, didn't give it indirect natural sunlight and wasn't looking after it, it would start to shrivel and like get all awful. That's the same as you. You are a human houseplant. So really thinking about you're saying you don't have time for it, but if you don't make the time, it's going to catch up with you eventually. So it's really starting small with those 2 minute practices. So if you don't feel like you can take 30 minutes, an hour away from lunch, get outside for 15 minutes, go grab a sandwich, do a little bit of square breathing, and come back to your desk. And then you've done it. Think about the activities that we spoke about in the workshop today around having those high impact things but low time activities. So, what can you do to help refocus yourself and recenter yourself so you are looking after yourself a little bit as you go through your day? If your workplace culture doesn't support it and you don't feel like you're getting the support from your managers or your team or your organization, then it's about starting small and leading by example. Really starting to own this for yourself and recognize that if they're not going to do it, then you can start looking after yourself to make sure that you are the best for you. Um, and then moving forward with that. If you forget to practice self-care and well-being practices, that's going to happen because if you're not in the routine of doing this, then it's going to happen. So it is about thinking like, do you need to set calendar reminders? Do you need to um, do a little bit of habit stacking where you are, which is a great concept from James Clear in Atomic Habits, where he talks about habit stacking. So if you go and make a coffee or a tea, then when you are doing that, while you're waiting for the kettle to boil, then spend 1 minute doing some breathing exercises or spend 1 minute doing a little bit of mindfulness. So you are then recognizing that when you go make a coffee, you do this, and then you do this, and then you will slowly start to build up those habits in that way. So then they will become natural to you that when you go and make the coffee or tea, then you've then got that in place. I know I've talked a lot at you today, and it feels like because I've not been able to do this live because I'm heading to a hospital appointment, it feels like I've not had that connection, so I've not been able to hear what you've been thinking or what you've been saying. So I really would love some feedback. Like, please watch this and give me some feedback and let me know if anything resonates with you or if you want to talk anything through. I mean, I think the one thing that I'd love to get across for everybody is that well-being isn't selfish, it's necessary. And once more people get that into their heads, the easier it's going to be. Okay, we are done. We are finished with the 4 episodes, the 4 series, the 4 sessions of the Thrive at Work series. So in the first episode, the first session, not an episode, in the first session, we talked about going from overwhelm to overview. In session 2, we went through the boundary blueprint. In session 3, we went through the confidence code, and today we've gone through the wellbeing workspace. All these elements together can be used to create a sustainable approach to professional success. I will share a link to a discovery call that you can that you can book in if you are interested in more personalized support for yourself or for your team to really help you implement those strategies. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. Really, really appreciate it. Remember, your well-being is the foundation of your success, and that starts with you. I will be back next month for some more LinkedIn Lives because I've really, really enjoyed doing them. But for now, thank you so much, and I will speak to you very soon. Bye.